Why were we put here? I think everyone wants to know, why were we put here? Why are we on Earth?
My purpose in life is to live a normal life, to be a citizen, a productive citizen.
I don't fully know why I'm here, but I enjoy that. I enjoy knowing that because then that creates endless possibilities for myself.
Смысл жизни, я думаю, что в жизни самой.
I believe it's random, to be honest. I don't think there's a plan. I think you make your own destiny.
Intentar pasar por la vida de la manera más desapercibida posible.
I would like to make a difference, even if it's only in one life. I'd prefer to do more.
Love, happiness, joy, yoga.
I think oftentimes you realize what the purpose was more by looking back than looking forward in my way. Some people plan ahead and know exactly what their life is, what their purpose in life is in their mind anyway.
I find direction in life by just meditating daily, just coming out here to the beach.
Whether it be spending time with friends or family or putting some gas in my boat so I can go fishing and catch a few fish, go home, have a fish fry. I live day by day. I like to take it like that.
Society wants you to think that your life's purpose is all about work and making money and moving forward in that direction, but I think that's wrong, and I'm still trying to figure out what's right for me.
I'd say that because I think the meaning of life, in my opinion, is to find something that you're passionate about and use that passion to make the world around you a better place.
我相信每个人的生命中都有一个目标，而且那个目标只能在神里面找得到。
Yeah, I think everyone has a reason to live. Everyone offers something to this world, whether it be bad, whether it teaches people to be good, or whether they're good themselves. But I think everyone has a purpose on this planet.
Well, thank you guys for being here today. I invited Tim up because he's got all the answers. He didn't know I was going to say that until just now. I don't know about you, I know about me, and I know about him. We've been wrestling with this question for a little bit. In fact, I think I've been wrestling with it for my entire life. And I don't know, Tim?
Yeah, I like what Becky said at the beginning. There's some things about purpose that we identify with because of our position in life. Like when we were kids, that was our purpose. When we became adults, it became a lot more complicated because of work, because of whether you go to school or you go into a career, paying bills, dating, relationships, family. So some purposes we understand just because of our position in life. But then what happens when that position changes? I mean, many of you know, Joan and I and the girls have been here since summer of 2015. Before that, I was a pastor for 9 years in Oak Park. And so a lot of my life was defined by that position. And when that changed, it kind of put me into a crisis for quite a while. And so thankful for this congregation and for my friendship with Don and all of you and my family, my daughters and Joan, just being there. And it's really taken me, it's still taking me time to understand that our purpose is a lot more than what we do in life. You know, so often I think in our culture we define things by career, by vocation, by education, by the size of our house, by the car we drive. It was just interesting that a few months ago too, Heather was talking about one of her classmates who I don't remember which one, Heather, but he has an iPhone 10, right? Yeah, yeah, even kids are carrying around, and so even now, I know there was a different video on the Question Exploring God that I watched this week that one of the speakers, I think David Kinnaman, talked about how our technology often defines who we are as well. I mean, I don't know, you get those reports on your iPhone that tell you how much time you spend on your iPhone. I know, and it's kind of astounding if you're not really paying attention, right? I mean, it can be a lot of time. And so I think we live in an age where it's complex as far as how do we define ourselves? How do we identify our purpose?
And I think, like I said, I've been wrestling with this, and I have a question. How many of you were here last year in January at some point? Raise your hands. Now, could somebody tell me what I preached on? Jesus. I can. Woo, good answer. And I think I can't even. I didn't go back. Maybe I should have and looked to see what it was. And the first person to write about that feeling of this is King Solomon. He was David's son. And this is what he says in Ecclesiastes chapter 1. The words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Meaningless. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. In case you didn't know, that's the answer to the first blank. It's meaningless. But do you ever feel that way? It's like, what's the sense? I mean, the more money I have, it doesn't make that big of a difference, does it? The fact that, just so you know, my condo's larger than your condo, but Tom's house is larger than both of our condos. You know, I mean, it's always meaningless. Or at least it feels that way, that as we've already said, our purpose seems to change and it's different. And as I've wrestled with this, a couple of things that I thought of. One was, the reason we feel that way is we ask the question, what does, in our case, if we're a follower of Christ, if you're not following Christ, you still ask this question. It's, what does God want me to do? Right? Oh, he wants me to be a pastor, or a father, or a grandfather. And that's where we get our purpose from. Would you agree with that? That's who we are, is what we do. And it's not that we shouldn't do things, but I think our purpose is deeper than that. At least that's what I've been wrestling with. It's deeper than just what I do. I mean, everybody knows what this is, right? Yes. What do you use it for? Pounding nails, correct? Interestingly, I came across an article this week, 101 uses for a straight claw hammer. And it kind of made me think about us. Sometimes we get pigeonholed into that, this is the only thing that makes us important. This one happens to be 16 inches long, so I can use it to put studs. I heard, Mike, you might know that a lot of electricians use this for mounting their boxes because then they're the same height all the way around the room. I never thought about that. It can be used to scratch your back, crush ice. I've done that. It even said you could use it as a screwdriver if you absolutely had to, and as somebody said, well, butter knives are better. But isn't it, this is a tool. And we're not tools, are we? We're people created in the image of God. I'm going to shut up for a second and let Tim throw his 5 cents in here on the meaninglessness of life.
Oh, what stood out to me when you asked that question, what does God want me to do? I wrote it, I mean, I'm a note taker, Don said we really didn't need to prepare, but I prepared 5 notes, and that's my old Presbyterian background coming out, so it's going to take me a few more years to recover from that, I think, but we're getting there. But anyway, when I underlined the word do, it kind of goes back, I think, to what I said earlier. So often I think we define ourselves by what we can accomplish, you know. Even at work, I work at Park Lawn, and we have to take paperwork. We make reports every day when we do a route, when we take someone to the school or to library. A lot of the clients at Park Lawn have jobs, and so I'm always having to take notes of, you know, I do mileage, when I start, when I end, what time, the condition of the vehicle. And I don't know, my boss, who just retired recently, how they deal with all the reports that they have to do. But I think so often we define ourselves by, you know, what we can accomplish. I mean, you know, Becky's a school teacher, and, you know, she has to do grading. My kids, every few months, they do this thing called MAP testing. And then we get a report at home, Joan and I, and it has this little bar graph with different colors, how Heather or Hannah did, how the students in her class did, how the kids from the other Southwest campus in Tinley, and then even beyond that, I think. I don't know. And it's like, you know, we're kind of educated into thinking, well, if I do well on this test, if I do well in school, if I do well on my job, you know, then I'm worthwhile, then I'm valuable. I have significance. And that's kind of, I think, what our culture, I think, teaches us often, too. I mean, even in the next few months, there's all these award shows on TV, Golden Globes, Academy Awards. I know there's a bunch of them, and I don't really watch them that much. But when we look at what God says in His Word, our value comes from Him. Like Don just said, we're made in His image.
Well, and that's, I've got it, I think it's on the screen next. It says, Paul tells the church in Colossae, everything got started in Him and finds its purpose in Him. And it's like it's not about doing. It's really about being. What does God want me to be? And it's going to change my purpose. I was a single guy who was on the prowl for a wife, and then I found a wife, and my purpose became being a good husband, and then a father, and now it's a grandfather. The purpose isn't stagnant. Is that the right word? Or static. Static is the word I want. It isn't the same today as it is tomorrow. But ultimately, the purpose is found in Jesus Christ. And if you don't get anything else today, remember this: you were created on purpose, in the image of God. Turn to your neighbor and say, I've always wondered what God looked like. Now I know. I thought he'd be taller.
I thought he'd be shorter.
And not only were you created on purpose, but you're created for a purpose. The short catechism, because my Presbyterian friend reminded me of this. What does it say, Tim?
The shorter catechism from Westminster asks the question, what is the chief end of man? Or what is a person's chief end? I don't know if anyone knows the answer. The chief end of man, Don knows, but the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
And I think it's the end part of that that's sometimes what we miss. The enjoy Him forever. And forever is right now, isn't it? And are we enjoying God and our relationship with Him? Or are we so busy asking that question of what does God want me to do that we forget about being in a relationship with Him? You know, I think we grab that verse, Ephesians 2:10, that says, "For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works," but we're doing it because of our love for Him. And out of reverence for who He is and then what He did for us. I thought about what Kat said. If you're a sinner every day, raise your hand. If you're not, come on up and you can preach next week. Do we realize that's true, but we're also forgiven? And then I thought about this as Kat was saying. You know something else that I am every day, and you are every day? Wherever you are in your life, whether you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, whether you've committed the most awful sin that could be committed, you're loved. Isn't that what Paul says to the Romans? God demonstrated His love for us while we were yet sinners. He demonstrated His love for us by sending His Son to the cross. Turn to your neighbor and say, "You're loved." You're loved. It's not based on what you do. It's not based on what you know. You're loved because our God is a God of love. And so we need to be reminded of that. Jesus said in Matthew 6:33 that we're to be concerned about everything of the kingdom and what God requires of us. And what does God require of us? I mean, sometimes I think I get into the performance thing, right? This is what God requires of me, to do this and this and this and be this way and all of that. And really, He just wants me to open up my heart and my life and accept the gift that He has given me. So
I can identify with what Don was saying, because again, it goes back to that idea of, if I do well, my parents, at least growing up, that's what I kind of thought. If my parents would love me more if I got good grades, if I kept my bedroom clean, if I put my shoes in the closet. And it's just one of those things I just have to realize that no, God loves me just because He loves me. And I don't have to do anything to make Him love me more. Even when I fall short, He's always there waiting for me, waiting for any of us to come back to Him. And I was thinking too that sometimes the purpose is realized even in ways that we don't even think about. We were back home last week, the week before, for Christmas, and we got there in time to freshen up a little bit and go to our Christmas Eve service at my mom and dad's church in Des Moines. And then we went home, back to my mom and dad's, and unwrapped gifts. And then my brother-in-law, Daryl, we were just sitting there at the kitchen table after everything had been done, gifts and dinner and so forth. And he was just asking me, how things were going, what I was doing with my life. And I told him about Joan and the girls and about my job at Park Lawn. And he told me that he admired me. And I said, really? And what for? And he didn't really come out with a definitive answer. I think what he was trying to say in so many words was that he admired me, I guess, for my faith. I kind of pressed him on that more, and I might talk about that down the road when we continue in this series. But I realized that he saw things that I didn't even really think about. And sometimes I think our purpose is realized just in the small things of life. Whether it's, in my case, this week being out with the girls several times, going to the Museum of Science and Industry, shopping, eating, or my job transporting people with disabilities. But whatever you do may not seem like a big deal to you, but it means something to other people. And it especially means something to God. I mean, that was, I think, one thing that the Reformers and Scripture teaches us too, that you don't have to be in a special position like pastor or teacher or missionary. You can glorify God wherever you are. And one thing I think Martin Luther said, that God likes clean floors. And so maybe, you know, just cleaning the floor every day, you know, at work or at your home, cleaning toilets. I know no one likes to do it, but it's just whatever you do to the glory of God. And to realize that our purpose is realized in the things that we so often take for granted.
When you're in college, they teach you all about being a pastor, right? All the important stuff, right? I mean, would you guys like a synopsis of what they taught us? Hours upon hours upon hours. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite classes was a 3-hour class, and it was about how to conduct a funeral, a wedding, a baptism, and communion, and I think there was one other thing, maybe a baby dedication. Okay, 40 hours of classes, and 3 of them are on practical things. But there was a whole bunch of stuff they didn't teach us, right? And I don't know where this came from, but one of the verses that I latched onto is when Israel wanted a king, and Samuel's talking to God, and he's upset because they've rejected him, and God says, Samuel, they didn't reject you, they rejected me. And then Saul is selected to be the king of Israel. And one of the things that Samuel said to Saul in chapter 10, verse 7, you can look it up. I like what the Berean Study Bible says. It says, whatever you do, do whatever the occasion demands. You know, they never taught me in school that in my first church as a senior pastor, I would be mowing the grass on 5 acres of land with a 22-inch wide push mower. It caused me to pray a lot because if it rained, because I'd do a little section on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I mean 5 acres is a lot of land to mow by hand. And you didn't want to get, they didn't teach me that, you know, one day you're going to change the damper motor on the boiler. And a whole slew of other things. I don't know if you had anything that they didn't teach you.
Yeah, I don't know where to start on that one, but I was just thinking, even when you talked about that class for the baptisms and the funerals, and whatever funerals, I mean, are you thinking that class in itself was enough to teach you or train you for that? And, you know, it really isn't. I mean, and maybe that's true too, and I think in America we often look at our knowledge, and our knowledge is important. I mean, it's important to study, and to pray, spending time with God. But then there's the going out, the actual practice, you know. It's like I know somewhere along the line somebody gave me books on parenting, and I probably learned more about parenting just by being with Hannah and Heather and taking them places. And I think the one thing, they'll probably correct me afterwards, but they always do, which is a good thing, keeps me humble. But I think the thing I've learned is just, yeah, the books are good. I mean, I love books, and yet there comes a point when I have to just, even like this today, I just have to put it all aside and just go with what God's telling me in the moment. And that's often what parenting, I think what life is about. You learn what you need to learn, but then you go out and you do it. You put it into practice. And you realize, I think, and one thing I'm learning is that God is there in the moment when you need Him. God is right now, He's here with us. And for me, I think that's important because I'm a person that tends to look to the future and what if this happens, what if that happens, worrying. And I think God's just saying, don't worry about tomorrow, just deal with today, deal with the present moment, and to realize that God is with you in the moment, whatever you're doing, and that's part of our purpose too, just to acknowledge God in our present moment.
Well, and I think, here's how I kind of wrapped my head around it. When Jesus was on the earth, He gave His disciples a whole big long list of things that they had to do, right? No. One little simple command started it all. Follow me. And when you're following Him, you're in relationship with Him. And it's interesting, I found a book by Simon T. Bailey, and he's a secular writer. I found it in a secular magazine on success. It's called Release Your Brilliance. In it, he lays out a simple 3-step exercise to help you discover your purpose and then design your life around it. Listen to what he says. It's profound. This is your first note there. Ask, seek, knock. Now, you know what? Doesn't that sound familiar, like somebody else said that?
Yeah.
Isn't that what Jesus said? No. To ask, to seek, and to knock. If you're not in a relationship with somebody, can you really ask them? You know, there are times I wish I could go and sit down with different people. Like, a lot lately I wanted to go and sit down with Donald Trump and tell him it's okay to be quiet and not use. But I don't have a relationship with him. But when we have a relationship with Christ, we can ask Him, what does He want me to do? We can be reminded of how much He loves us and what He wants us to be. We're all, if we're forgiven, we're God's children. And then seeking, I think the reason that Solomon thought life was meaningless was he was seeking after wealth and popularity. I mean, you know, achievements. Hey, I tease Tim a lot. I've got a PhD. I don't think you do you? No. Right, I have a posthole digger. But, okay?
I don't have one of those here.
Yeah, I didn't think you did. But what's that about? It's about having the knowledge, and that makes me a little better. And it's, no. What things are we seeking? Are we seeking His favor? Are we seeking a relationship with Him where we spend time with Him? And then knocking. You know, that to me signifies a continual over and over again kind of thing. I don't know if I'm making sense there with that one. That you just don't do it once, but you have to go back. You know, it's the same as any other relationship that we might have. You spend time together, and you find out what's on their mind, and in this case, on God's mind. So I don't know if you have anything, now that you got all your...
Yeah, all my